This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Oil prices fell by about 2% on Friday and posted weekly losses after U.S. jobs data shrank the odds of imminent interest rate cuts in the world's largest economy, which could dampen crude demand. Faltering growth in China and the possibility of some easing of tensions in the Middle East also reduced prices. Brent crude futures settled at $77.33 a barrel, shedding $1.37, or 1.7%. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures settled at $72.28 a barrel, falling $1.54, or 2%. Both benchmarks lost roughly 7% on the week.
Russian oil suppliers have resumed Urals ship-to-ship (STS) operations in the Mediterranean after a 6-month pause, data showed, trying to address tanker shortages, traders said. Bad weather and security risks in the Red Sea have made round-trip voyages for tankers carrying Russian oil longer and exacerbated an already tight fleet market, traders said. Urals oil, Russia's flagship export blend loaded from its western ports, is mostly supplied to Asia due to a European Union embargo on Russian oil.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Europe will have enough gas supply for the next 10 years and thereafter, despite a move by the US administration to pause approvals on new liquefied natural gas (LNG) plants, EU energy officials and analysts said, dismissing industry's warnings. Gas companies and lobby groups who learned of the move ahead of the decision and unsuccessfully opposed it, according to documents seen by Reuters, warned it would compromise global energy security and efforts to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. The US has become the biggest exporter of LNG to Europe, as EU countries have raced to replace Russian fuel following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Over 60% of US LNG exports went to Europe in the last 2 years.
Venezuela's exports of crude and refined products fell by 25% in January to some 624,000 barrels per day, BPD, as power outages hit the main oil export terminal, according to vessel tracking data and internal documents from state oil firm PDVSA. The U.S. this week said it would reimpose energy sanctions in April if President Nicolas Maduro's administration does not stick to a deal to accept conditions for a fair presidential election. Analysts said this would hurt the country's ability to collect cash from its crude exports. The OPEC member country's oil exports increased almost 12% last year despite operational mishaps, boosted by Washington's move to ease sanctions amid negotiations with Maduro. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Iron ore futures prices extended losses on Friday to their lowest level in 2 weeks and were set for a weekly fall as concerns persisted over the recovery of the property sector in top consumer China. The most traded May iron ore contract on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange, DCE, ended daytime trade 2.23% lower at 941 yuan, $131.07, a metric ton, marking its lowest level since January 19. It has fallen more than 5% this week. Meanwhile, the benchmark March iron ore on the Singapore exchange was down 3.24% at $126.75 a ton, as of 0701 GMT, logging its lowest level since January 18. It has declined over 6% so far this week.
Risk aversion is likely to leave major Western miners lagging in a race to tap Africa's reserves of critical raw materials that has gathered pace now Middle Eastern oil powers have begun to emulate China's years of investment on the continent. Attracting the capital needed to advance copper, cobalt, nickel and lithium projects in Africa will be high on the agenda when executives, bankers and government officials gather in Cape Town, South Africa, for the annual African Mining Indaba beginning on Monday. For the big listed miners, the problem is convincing board members anxious to keep shareholders on side, an issue China and the state-backed funds from the Middle East with a mandate to diversify from oil and gas do not face.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
The United Nations Food Agency's World Price Index fell in January to its lowest level in nearly 3 years, driven by declines in cereals and meat. The Food and Agriculture Organization's FAO price index, which tracks the most globally traded food commodities, averaged 118.0 points in January, down from 119.1 the previous month, the agency said on Friday. The January reading was the lowest since February 2021. That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.